What's going on, everyone? Will Trubshaw here with Andrew Fish to break down another IU women's basketball game, another IU women's basketball win for IUSTV Sports. And Andrew, today, this one, one that tastes really good for the Hoosiers. A win over Purdue, 66-45, taking down their in-state arch rivals. And a big one, this was the seventh time in their last 8 meetings that the Hoosiers have won. So really, since Terry Morin has taken over this team, she has led the Hoosiers to some dominance of the Boilermakers. And a little tinge of irony is Terry Morin played her collegiate career at Purdue. But I mean, from the get-go in this one, it had the feel in the first quarter like some of the games we've seen before, or the last couple of games really, where it's not a slow start, but it's pretty evenly matched for those first 10 minutes. But then IU really took off in that second quarter.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see a theme now that IU kind of gets off to a slower start in that first quarter, and then the adjustments get made between the first and second quarter, and Indiana outscores Purdue 20-3 in that second quarter and really takes over the game there. I think that this was the best defensive game that Indiana has played so far this season, and it was another – I mean, I feel like I keep saying this every single game, but it feels like Indiana found another way to win. They can win by Ali Papberg scoring 25. They can win by Grace Berger scoring, 25. They can win from Mackenzie Holmes scoring 25. And now they win this one. Granted, both Mackenzie Holmes and Grace Berger scored in the 20s, but they won this one on the defensive end, which we occasionally have seen stretches where Indiana has been dominant defensively, but really throughout the entirety of this game, Indiana was locked in on the defensive end. There were no points scored in the paint for Purdue all game long. A credit to Mackenzie Holmes and the defense that she's been putting together in the paint. And it's just, even without Jalen Penn, who will be back this season, she'll be back in a couple of weeks, which is great to hear. We were worried that she might be done for the season, but when you get her back, who is a really good perimeter defender, and then somebody who can stretch the floor, I think that this Indiana team's continuing to get better and better. And frankly, Alexa Gulbe, I think, had one of her best games so far this season on the defensive end, especially blocking shots, rebounding. She played really hard. So there were a lot of great things out of this one. Obviously, when you beat a rival by 20 points on the road, it feels really sweet. But to do it on the defensive end, Terry Morin has to be really pleased.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned the defense. The Hoosiers at one point held the Boilermakers to 11 minutes without a point, not just a field goal, without a point. From the 8:53 mark of the second quarter all the way to about the 7-minute, 30-second mark of the third quarter. Just absolute domination by the Hoosiers. And in that stretch in the second quarter, they went on a 17-0 run to really blow the game open, 32-15. And like you said, they got it done on the defensive end. That two-headed monster down in the paint, Mackenzie Holmes and Alexa Gulbe, they are really gelling together. You can tell they have some good chemistry. I want to ask you a little more about Alexa Gulbe, because you mentioned you thought this was her best game of the year. And Terry Morin, actually, in the post-game press conference, said something very similar. She was very pleased with Gulbe's play, but she also thinks that she can do a little more. She can contribute a little more offensively and defensively, which seems crazy to say. But do you agree with that? And what did you see from Gulbe today that was so impressive?
Yeah, I think Alexa Gulbe and just about any other team in the country would probably be scoring close to 20 points a game, leading the team in almost every single statistical category. But with this team, she's kind of taken a seat back to be one of those glue guys for this team, where she's really just does everything that you need her to do. And tonight she was spectacular defensively. Her and Mackenzie Holmes, they locked down the paint. That's why Purdue only scored 44 points. They couldn't score anything inside, and a big testament to Alexa Gulbe. But we've seen her do a variety of things. She's 6'3". She can make three-pointers. She can handle the ball. And now she turns into a great shot blocker, averaging over a block a game on the season. You have to be really thrilled at the way she's trending. And if Indiana needed her to put up 20 points in a game, needed her to step up, lead the team in shot attempts, I think that her stats would be a lot more impressive. But she hasn't really been, asked to do that, needed to do that. And I think it's impressive to her and how much of a team player she is, that she's willing to just do the dirty things that get wins. And she did that again tonight.
Yeah, I think that is a really good point you make, is the fact that this is such a deep team, especially on that offensive end. I mean, you look at it again, Berger and Holmes are getting 17 to 20 points a night every night. Ali Papberg chipped in with a couple 20+ point games. When Jalen Penn's healthy, she's knocking down shots. So really that need for Galway to be assertive on offense isn't always there, but she gets you those consistent points. And it makes a difference in the long run. That's the definition of a true team player. And I have to agree with you. I think, if this team were built a little differently, or if she were on a different team, she would probably be their catalyst, the offensive catalyst, because she can hit 3-point shots. She can operate in the post. She's really kind of that stretch forward that is so valuable to so many teams in today's game. So we'll make one final point here, because for the Hoosiers now the schedule kind of gets ratcheted up a little bit. We've mentioned it before, um, but I'll throw a couple stats out there. And every win the Hoosiers have had so far in the Big Ten, so that's 6 of them, 6-1 now. They've won by at least 20 points. Their only loss was to Maryland. That was just a 4-point loss. Now, though, the schedule is starting to get ratcheted up. Purdue, they just played. They're now 2-4 in conference. Normally, they're a pretty good team, but they've struggled of late. Now you're getting Michigan State, who they're not ranked currently, but they've been receiving votes, and they were ranked earlier in the season. You play them 2 out of the next 3 games. You've got Ohio State, who's ranked. You've got Northwestern coming up. You don't play Michigan, who is actually undefeated right now in Big Ten play, much like the men's counterpart. They're playing very well. You won't get them till later in the year, I think late February. But nonetheless, the stretch is going to get a little tougher here for the Hoosiers. And we talked about it at the beginning of our discussion here. The Hoosiers kind of get off to slow starts, and that nearly buried them in that game against Maryland. How can they avoid getting off to slow starts? What can they do to maybe replicate the success they've had in their Big Ten wins against these difficult ranked opponents?
I think just from the get go, it's going to be important for the ball to get inside to Mackenzie Holmes. It seems like the second quarter is always just, okay, we're trying to, finding our range with this team. And then in the second quarter, they just feed Mackenzie Holmes relentlessly. And she puts up, close to 15 points by halftime. And the Indiana goes into the break leading by quite a large margin. So I think that if you do that on the road against Michigan State, you feed Mackenzie Holmes right away to start that game. I like the chances that Indiana's going to be able to score, and it just opens up the floor so much for some of the shooters to get their points later in the game. So I think that that's important. But Michigan State's a team that's coming in off of 2 losses. One of them to an unranked Nebraska team that they probably feel like they should have beaten. So it's going to be an interesting game for them. But Indiana does get a full week of preparation now with the cancellation. No Rutgers game on Sunday. So they will get a full week to prepare, to get healthy. Hopefully that's another week for Jalen Penn to get closer to being healthy. And you come into this game, and Michigan State, they've been pretty identical with Indiana for the most part, other than that Nebraska loss. Michigan State, they went on the road. They handled Purdue pretty well. They went and played Maryland on the road. They barely lost to them. So it feels like Indiana and Michigan State are programs that are kind of heading in the same direction, although Indiana's on a win streak and Michigan State's on a losing streak. We'll see when those two teams clash, but it'll be a good test for Indiana.
That it will be. Again, the schedule's going to get ratcheted up here for the Hoosiers, but that's what they want. They're contending for a Big Ten title, and they believe it, and they need to prove it now. So that'll do it. The Hoosiers again beating the Purdue Boilermakers 66-45. IU now 6-1 in Big Ten play, 8-3 on the season. For my partner Andrew Fish, and for everyone at IUSTV Sports, I'm Will Trubshaw. We'll see you next time.